We are connecting via Zoom. So many people across the country working from home are connected via Zoom. And if someone were to walk in behind me, you would see them. This is being recorded. I dare say no one expected to record criminal activity of the highest nature during a Zoom meeting. Tell me about this, please.
That's right. So this is a case out of Amityville, New York. The Amityville horror of this Zoom call was that it ended up being a support group turned crime scene. When one of 20 people on an AA meeting ended up being murdered, the crime began while he was on a screen, just like you and I are. Several of the participants saw this man slide out of the screen, saw him slide out of the box that he was in, and ended up calling 911. Now, that was great because 911 actually responded. But Jeff, the reason that there was a bit of a delay is while the other participants knew the man's identity, they didn't know his address. So they had to figure that out. Sadly, this ended up being a perpetrator who was a family member. But talk about Zoom as an investigative tool. They were able, certain people on the call, to see the perpetrator in the background of the Zoom lens. And so obviously you can see that, remember last year we called Alexa the silent witness. Zoom could be a witness as well, probably not as silent as most people are talking over each other throughout an entire Zoom call. That's why we mute the participants. But it not only could be a great crime fighting tool, but it also might be something we could authenticate as evidence in court, especially because so many Zoom meetings are recorded.
Because not only the recording, and you can justify that and set the foundation in court for the video not being tampered with, et cetera.
Right.
But as opposed to Alexa, you have, as you mentioned, in this case, 20 different people who, if they're all looking at the screen at the same time, saw the same thing. And to have the video to corroborate their eyewitness account, that's very powerful in court.
It is, and it's one reason to use gallery view instead of speaker view. Because if you're on gallery view, obviously you can see more people at once, and most people prefer gallery view. And that may have explained, I don't know, we don't know all the facts about the meeting, but that may have explained why a number of people saw this man disappear from his screen. It's also a reason not to mute your video. Now, obviously, most of us don't live in homes where we expect to be murdered during a Zoom call, but I'm sure this man probably didn't either. And we're not just talking about murder. There are lots of things that can happen during a Zoom call, particularly if you're Zooming from a public place, which you probably shouldn't be because we're supposed to be under some sort of stay-at-home restrictions in many states still. But it just goes to show you, Jeff, all the different ways in which we're able to perceive, if we're paying attention, things that might prove beneficial to solving a crime in the future. Maybe it's not even a crime, maybe it's a tort action. But by being perceptive, we're able to keep everybody else safe.
There always was the situation where if, for example, the pizza delivery man or woman came to the door and you opened the door and went to get the money and that delivery person saw a stash of drugs on the coffee table, well, you invited them in. What they saw could be reported to police. Can only imagine what people would inadvertently have in the background of their Zoom calls that literally could lead to whatever manner of civil or criminal charges or investigations.
And embarrassment, Jeff. Sadly, there have been so many, as you and I both know, Zoom calls gone viral because people didn't take into consideration what might be visible in the background or who might be visible in the background and in what conditions. So I think it's never a bad idea to continue to remind everyone, if you're going to Zoom, take the necessary precautions. Have your back up against a wall if you're worried about who else in the house might forget that you're in the middle of a Zoom meeting.